In this presentation, learners will analyze the needs of schools, teachers, and learners during the digital age to create and deliver a powerful multimedia presentation in the style of a TED Talk about a current or future educational or technological trend that will forever change how humans learn. Sugata Mitra said, "We do not need to improve schools. We need to reinvent them for our times. We need people who can think like children." We regularly hear complaints from teachers, parents, and the media about how different kids are today, how differently they learn, how differently they're motivated. We hear criticisms that kids today can't concentrate the same way the older generations can. We hear that kids today can't even memorize the names of the states, the provinces, or their capitals. And yet, despite the complaints about what kids today can't do, we continue to teach and test them the same way we always have. Sir Ken Robinson likes to point out that the digital generations are living in the most intensely stimulating period in history. They are being besieged with information and having their attention drawn by every platform, from computers to smartphones to tablets to advertising to hundreds of television channels, and then they are getting penalized for getting distracted so much. In the new digital landscape, our role as educators is not just to stand up in front of our students and show them how smart we are. Rather, it's to help them understand how smart they are, foster the new basic skills that will allow them to learn how to learn, and encourage them to take increasing control and responsibility for their own learning. This is not about making students learn, it's about getting students to want to learn. Technology in and of itself does not make an educational experience engaging. A teacher is without question the best one-to-one device in the classroom. The killer app for the 21st century is a great teacher. A teacher who has a love of learning. A teacher who has an appreciation of the aesthetic, the esoteric, the ethical, and the moral. A teacher who understands the great educational theorists such as Bloom, Gardner, Dewey, Freire, Vygotsky, and Piaget. A teacher who knows how different kids learn at different stages of their lives. There's absolutely a place for traditional teaching, learning, and assessment. There's absolutely a place for basic skills and memorization. There's absolutely a place for traditional education. That's how you transmit culture. That's how you transmit democracy from one generation to the next. And educators have every right to expect our students to respect and honor those traditions. Make sure you heard me say that. But at the same time, we have to understand that the world has fundamentally changed and continues to change at a faster and faster rate. So in the same way that we have every right to expect the digital generations to respect, understand, and engage with our world and our values, we absolutely also need to take the time and effort to respect, understand, and engage with their world and their values. And we ignore their world at our own peril. What we desperately need is balance between our world and theirs, between traditional and digital learning environments. Richard Sal Worman, the co-founder of the highly regarded TED conferences, once commented that learning can be seen as the acquisition of knowledge, but before learning can take place, it must be of interest. That interest precedes learning. In order to acquire and remember new knowledge, it must stimulate curiosity in some way. Worman said that learning is like Velcro. Only one side of learning is made up of facts. The other consists of stories, ideas, experiences, and personal interests. Worman says presenting content to students without personal interest or relevance is like having only one side of a piece of Velcro. The content just doesn't stick. For educators to help students cultivate the new basic skills they need to thrive in the 21st century, they must tap into student interest and relevance, make real-world connections, show students how to ask good questions, show students how to reflect on their learning. They must also encourage risk-taking and promote collaborative practices for both teachers and students. In his best-selling book, The Global Achievement Gap, Why Even Our Best Schools Don't Teach the New Survival Skills Our Children Need and What We Can Do About It, world-renowned Harvard University fellow and author Tony Wagner identified 7 survival skills for the 21st century. Critical thinking and problem solving, collaboration across networks and leading by influence, agility and adaptability, initiative and entrepreneurialism, effective written and oral communication, accessing and analyzing information, and curiosity and imagination. Some teaching approaches that are geared towards 21st century students' needs include project-based learning, problem-based learning, product-based learning, inquiry-based learning, scenario-based learning, the maker movement, self-directed research, passion-based learning, active learning, and Genius Hour. Educators must assume a new role in the modern world so they can maintain relevance to their students. Educators are future-focused. Educators must envision what their students will need once they leave school and college and incorporate those needs into instruction. Educators are lifelong learners. The world keeps changing every day, and not just small changes. For educators and students to stay skilled in an age of certain change, they must constantly learn, unlearn, and relearn. Educators are role models and modelers. Educators must exude trust, kindness, fairness, and curiosity. They must practice ethical behavior. These attributes are quite contagious. In the digital age, we call this digital citizenship. Educators must maintain professionalism and passion. Educators must also model how to learn and use technology effectively with students. Educators are generalists, not specialists. Many of the specialized jobs in the world are quickly disappearing due to outsourcing and digital technologies. The real formula for relevance is to be a generalist, wise in the ways of how the content students learn works in the real world. To know a little about a lot. Educators must embrace discovery learning. New knowledge is retained and appreciated more by the learner when they discover it on their own. Educators must facilitate ways for students to practice inquiry, prediction, questioning, and experimentation. Educators enhance instruction with real-world meaning. The famous student question, "When will I ever use this?" is answered when they see a clear need for the learning to occur. Educators are process and context instructors, not just content assessors. For a long time, educators were the main source of knowledge in the classroom. Now they must communicate the need to learn and why it is important. They must also provide a logical process by which students will learn new content and skills. Educators are crafters of problems. As students enter adulthood and the modern workforce, they will be expected to solve real-world problems. In schools, they should be solving these problems to prepare them for their future. Educators must craft problems using the content learners must learn. Educators are facilitators, not lecturers or sages on the stage. Educators help learners cultivate the sense of student agency. To do so, learners must take an active role during the learning process. By empowering learners to actively learn, the role of educators becomes that of a facilitator and not a content dispenser. Educators are elevators of the level of thought. Educators must create tasks that call on learners to use higher levels of thinking. Superficial learning never sticks. Educators teach the whole mind. Brain-based research suggests that people learn content using many different ways. Educators should incorporate active learning, visual learning, solo and cooperative learning, to name a few. Educators expand the view of the curriculum. Educators must take the opportunity to go beyond what is found in curriculum guides if topics are brought up organically, if there is a special event, or a unique opportunity presents itself. Educators use technology as a learning tool. Educators must determine if there is a relative advantage of using one tool over another. In many cases, using digital tools or resources should optimize or revolutionize the learning process. However, technology should never be used for technology's sake. Finally, educators are holistic evaluators. Educators are embracing authentic assessments, such as formative assessment and performance-based assessment. They know how to best to elevate their own students. Summative and standardized assessments are used sparingly. Digital teachers use interactive instruction. They use digital tools and the web. They use personal response systems or mobile assessment tools, tools that can capture real-time data. Digital teachers participate in personal and professional learning networks or communities of practice.
ISTE advances excellence in learning and teaching through innovative and effective uses of technology.
The ISTE standards for educators represents the essential skills educators must possess to be considered digital or connected educators. Standard 1, Learner. Educators continually improve their practice by learning from and with others and explore proven and promising practices that leverage technology to improve student learning. 2. Leader. Educators seek out opportunities for leadership to support student empowerment and success and to improve teaching and learning. 3. Citizen. Educators inspire students to positively contribute to and responsibly participate in the digital world. 4. Collaborator. Educators dedicate time to collaborate with both colleagues and students to improve practice, discover and share resources and ideas, and solve problems. 5. Designer. Educators design authentic, learner-driven activities and environments that recognize and accommodate learner variability. 6. Facilitator. Educators facilitate learning with technology to support student achievement of the ISTE standards for students. Finally, 7. Analyst. Educators understand and use data to drive their instruction and support students in achieving their learning goals.
For 21st century learning environments, there's a shift from traditional to digital learning approaches. Technology adoption, 4-phase process. First is dabbling. Next is doing old things using old ways. Next is doing new things using old ways. And finally is doing new things using new ways.
Bloom's digital taxonomy is about using technology, digital tools, and media to facilitate learning. It starts with lots, or lower order thinking skills, and ascends to HOTS, or higher order thinking skills. As educators and trainers preparing for the learning process, we must incorporate both types of thinking skills, lots of lots and lots of HOTS. The list above represents action verbs based on what students are expected to do during the learning process. Each verb is aligned to the appropriate level of Bloom's taxonomy. Teachers use these action verbs as the basis for creating their students' learning objectives. Learners are supposed to demonstrate these thinking skills in the lessons they are participating in. Warning: this list was written from an author in New Zealand, so some words are spelled differently. What will the future of education look like? How will the next generation learn? How will education prepare them for a global workforce that pits their skills, expertise, and tenacity against competitive workers in other countries, or even software, apps, robots, and eventually artificial intelligence? Let's take a look at learning in the year 2035. TED is a platform for ideas worth spreading. Started in 1984 as a conference where technology, entertainment, and design converged, TED today shares ideas from a broad spectrum, from science to business to global issues, in more than 100 languages. Meanwhile, independent TEDx events help share ideas in communities around the world. You will be developing your own TED Talk. For your TED Talk, research a topic involving education or technology, present or future. Write a script and set up a visual presentation to correspond with your script. Video record your 5 to 10 minute TED Talk. Share your video via YouTube, TeacherTube, or Vimeo. Submit your transcript and video share link for assessment.